Many directors aim for style when making crime movies, but very few are able to distill the cool aesthetics of it like Nicholas Winding Refn, a director whose work is prolific not only for his international hits, but for the ones that define the culture in his home country of Denmark. The neon lights and stark violence that populate his films made a style that many tried to replicate, but few can pull off. Sometimes even Nick can't pull it. That's why today I'm going to take a look at his films, as he is one of the most unique directors to tackle the crime genre, ranking Nicholas Winding Refn's films from worst to best.
You Christians?
Yes?
You're lying.
Well, that fucking sucked. It's an art house Viking drama set in the Middle Ages, in which a bunch of Vikings get stuck in some weird purgatory that is mainland Europe. Long before the Green Knight or the Northmen tried to tackle this setting in an artful and thought-provoking way, Nicholas Winding Refn tried to do the same with Valhalla Rising. However, the only thing it manages to provoke in me is how much more time is left until the movie is finished. While the concept of Vikings venturing into a foreign land only to find themselves in hell, literally and figuratively, is a cool concept, yet the drab execution leaves much to be desired. Refn clearly wanted to have his cake and eat it too. He wanted to capture these hellish visions of lost travelers, but only got as far as white dudes stumbling through the forest and getting mad at each other. Clearly, it is trying to go for Apocalypse Now, but falls short of that film's redeeming quality, instead resembling Meek's Cutoff, falling short of that film's qualities too. Visually, it just looks like shit. The presentation is characterized by some of the loose camera work that you could find in his Pusher films, complemented by the gray, drab ugliness that was so prevalent in the late 2000s and early 2010s for some reason. A visual palette that looks super bleak and uninteresting. I don't know why, but that was so persistent back then. You can see it in games like Gears of War and Zack Snyder's films. It's really ugly. Thank God we got past that point in time, and thank God he got past that too. Even though there are some good visuals here and there, the overall experience still looks like shit. Not to mention, all the actors can't act. Mads Mikkelsen is here, and he can't save it because he's mute, like his character is mute. Maybe he just didn't want to do lines, I don't know. I think the actors, they're going for that blank-faced expression that is present in much of Refn's later work, but it has none of the presentation or atmosphere to back it up. Valhalla Rising has very few redeeming qualities. Its presentation is drab, the story is vague, and the visual effects are bad. It's bad. Not even Vikings can save it.
You wanna fight?
Penis hands. Penis hands. This is probably the most divisive film in Refn's filmography. Many of the film's bizarre choices have garnered a fan base and this specific style of filmmaking in which he's trying to go for, yet Only God Forgives isolates me and the viewer from actually enjoying it. Refn tries to strike the same chord he did with Drive, having Gosling play a practically mute, dissonant figure who expresses so much with minimal dialogue and has very few direct character interactions. That is, except for violence. However, with Only God Forgives, it feels more directionless, in spite of his attempts at expressive filmmaking. It's got the glitzy neon lights, the hyper-violence, and the awesome soundtrack with the droning ambience and synth-heavy pop tunes, just like Drive did, but it has none of the charm. It follows this boxing club owner who loses his brother and must confront the man who did it. The film is not particularly engaging with how it gives us information. It tries to get into Gosling's emotional state here, and it just doesn't work. The film feels clueless about what to do with Gosling. It sets up this excessive imagery involving boxing, statues, neon lights, and hands. Specifically hands, I don't know why. He gives it an almost phallic connotation here. If you don't believe me, here's a clip of Refn himself explaining that.
But the idea of a fight movie image is very much the clenched fist, and which is of course a very a violent act. But it's also an extension of the male sexuality, and the idea that one movement is a mixture of sex and violence that's about penetrating.
Say it with me, folks. Penis hands. It's sort of like he's going for an Oedipus Rex thing with this movie, but its narrative is so devoid of substantial character that I end up with the more useless questions at the end of the film that I know can't be answered well. Above all, this film is just fucking boring. I've watched this film a few times now, and multiple times I fell asleep doing so. If I tried to understand what Refn was going for here, when making this movie, I could say that he was trying to improvise a bit with the film script and hoping the minimal nature of it could lead to some interesting things happening while he produced it, attempting a freeform jazz approach to filmmaking. Yet for me, it just feels empty. Empty and dull. At least it looks good. Beyond the visual eye candy here, there's nothing. Let me say it again, folks.
True beauty is the highest currency we have. Now, without it, she would be nothing.
In the same vein as Only God Forgives and Drive, The Neon Demon is another bright, fluorescently lit film with minimal acting and bare-bones dialogue. However, it is closer to Only God Forgives in quality than it is to Drive. Neon Demon repeats many of the mistakes made in Only God Forgives. It follows a young girl as she enters the world of LA modeling and the many dangers that lie underneath its surface. The acting feels too stiff, but the visual imagery here is still very overbearing. However, it improves on the previous film by making it less obnoxious. No phallic hands here. The scenes with obscure imagery look cool, and don't give me a headache when I think about it. Does it make much sense? Sort of. I mean, it is still abstract stuff, and some of the meaning is fairly obvious if you think about it, with what it's trying to say. They're not abrasive, and there isn't a cringeworthy video of the director trying to explain what it means, which is a telltale sign of a director having no idea what the fuck he's doing while making a movie. The film should kind of speak for itself. As far as I know. I don't know, maybe there's some video out there. Post it in the comments below. Neon Demon still looks good, and the LA setting feels like a comfortable place for Refn to have his films take place in. Not that Bangkok didn't work for Only God Forgives, but the polish a city like Los Angeles has is on an entirely different level than Bangkok. So when we get taken into the disgusting underbelly, we get that sinking feeling of repulsion as we watch it, making the film's shifts in mood effective on the audience. At the end of the day, it is an improvement over his last, but it feels a little lost in the imagery he tried to conjure. Not only that, but the acting style he employs is a detriment to the experience he is trying to provide. It's gorgeous, but dull. It feels like I'm standing in a nightclub by myself at the dead of night. Vacant, confusing, and a little bit terrifying, yet still dull.
What about your wife? Maybe she knew him.
Not that I know of.
Well, nobody can know all about someone, can they?
Refn's English language debut is a strange one. Fear X feels like it's caught between two separate films. As a result, both parts neutralize each other to make an otherwise middling experience. This film feels restless with its own subject matter and how it is handled. Not to say that it doesn't have some amazing moments throughout, but it is tied down with that very deadpan investigation that the story insists on having. When that investigation ramps up, that's when the film begins to fall under its own weight. Fear X follows a mall cop played by John Turturro, who loses his wife in an unsolved shooting, taking the case into his own hands while he is assailed by haunting visions along the way. Now, my problem here is that while the surreal imagery is well done, the story in which it serves a purpose to is very lackluster. I think it comes from how much of the dialogue there is surrounding the case. For a story like this to work, the atmosphere needs to be first, so that we feel the discomfort in the main character's perspective, as he's trying to deal with his grief and coming to terms with his own loss, since that's what this film is really about. Instead, it gets bogged down by his investigation, which by the end of the film feels really unsatisfying. Visually, it's great. Not just the surreal imagery, but the cold desolation that comes out of the small Midwestern town setting. Although it's pretty easy to accomplish that if your film takes place in Wisconsin, let's be honest. Its glacial pacing adds to that eerie atmosphere. The characters do act with great deliberation, and you can get why. It has a great feeling of fear and anxiety throughout. Or should I say, it has a great feeling of Fear X? Huh? What? Being serious for a moment, Fear X was a welcome surprise that I did not expect out of Refn's filmography. While it is very flawed, the elements of horror work so well that it kind of made the rest of the film bearable. In a way, it reminds me of the first Silent Hill movie, which captures some of the game's atmosphere, but is unable to do anything with its story. At least with this film, it's visually coherent, and the narrative is like a little bit compelling. I mean, it could always be worse. It could always be the second Silent Hill movie.
And whatever you're thinking of saying or doing, don't bother, because I've seen it before, and I'm just guessing here, but I don't think there are too many original thinkers in this room. And by the time any of you have found out anything about me that's worth knowing, I'll have moved on.
Fucking loonies, they're great, mate. But, well, they're fucking loonies, aren't they?
Bronson has a fascinating concept for a biopic that explores multiple narrative motifs to create a unique portrait of a complex and charismatic man, excellently portrayed by Thomas Hardy's eccentric character. Ultimately, however, Bronson loses all its momentum by rushing through the infamous prisoner's life story. The titular infamous prisoner, Charles Bronson, not to be confused with the actor, gained his infamy by wasting exorbitant amounts of money fighting with prison guards during his extensive tenure in British prisons, fighting for fighting's sake, ultimately trying to discern if he wants to do anything beyond that. It's too short, what's there is great, but the pace is too quick. The off-kilter sense of humor it brings is quite refreshing. Visually, it brings in the intensity and adrenaline required for such a story. He even managed to squeeze in some neon lights that Refn gushes over like Tarantino does with Thief. The problem is that it's too fast and too abrupt conclusion. I love how this story is told. Having Thomas Hardy's Bronson narrate his life like a stage show, even including some segments that describe his thought processes and interactions at that point in his life. Everything here is top-notch. I just wanted more of it, man. I love how Tom Hardy's performance captures Charlie's rage and his indifference to a higher calling. The character's interesting, but there's no development here. Charles Bronson loves to fight. Simple as. He's a simple chap. Which makes this a very entertaining film, but a lot like Bronson, it does not have much under its surface. For me, it tries to capture no deeper ideas than the bewildering mind of its main character. And you know what? Sometimes that's just enough to make a movie be enjoyable, and that's just fine for me. Oh shit, it's time.
Later.
Come on, vodka, I have all my money on you. Come on, come on! Oh god, I thought it was a fucking sure thing. What the fuck am I gonna do now? What am I gonna do about that money? Oh shit.
Oh, Franke!
Hey!
Min vän!
Hey guys, it's me, Baasse here, and I'm back once again to review Pusher, the first film ever made by Nicholas Winding Refn. It is a cultural touchstone, with many referring to it as the Danish Pulp Fiction. I've never heard that before. Maybe that's an American thing. Pusher was made on a shoestring budget, but captures the intense thrills of criminal life with raw realism. The kind of realism that very few films capture well. The film is so real that they used real drugs in the process of making. I'm not even joking. It follows a drug pusher named Frankie as he gets his life turned upside down because of a drug deal gone wrong. Each scene follows the minute-to-minute panic he experiences in an attempt to cover his losses. Kim Bodnia's performance as Frankie is incredible. He plays the foul-mouthed pusher so believably well that you simultaneously understand his inner conflict and still find his actions deplorable. That goes for all of the characters. They are horrible in a lot of ways. They're also pretty base, but not inhumane. When shit happens, it does affect them. It's all, how the fuck did this spell Mads Mikkelsen? What the, Mads Mikkelsen? Mads Mikkelsen? What the fuck, bro? Come on. Okay. It's also Mads Mikkelsen's first feature, and his performance is as based as always. Pusher is just based in general. The rock soundtrack kicks ass. Okay, it kicks ass. The performances feel genuine, and its visual style feels so real that it can transport me into a grimy streets of Copenhagen. Plus, the film is Danish, so it's automatically better than anything else. That's pretty true. We are just better. That's a fact. I, Baasse, as a deeply closeted... Wait, what the fuck? Shut the fuck up. Fuck you, Jake. Huh. You wonder where Jake is? Oh, don't worry about him. He's repaying some debts. Is he sucking my dick right now? He probably is, man. Oh no, he's playing some fucking Hoi 4 game. Why would he do that? Why would he go through that torture? I guess that's me. That was Baasse. Hi, Jake's topics. You better not cut me out.
Help me. Where the fuck is Denmark?
Oh! Ew! Dude! What the fuck?
What the fuck, Nick? This is what I come back to? Pusher 3 is by far the darkest of the trilogy. Its bleak depiction of criminal life exceeds its predecessors. That, in my opinion, honestly detracts from my feelings from the overall film. While it definitely still retains some of the quality grit as the other films, like the great lead performances and the outstanding handheld cinematography, I can't help but shy away from taking points off for having such a gruesome conclusion. I do love the themes and the character moments here. Milo is a very interesting character to follow. In the first Pusher movie, he was the film's omnipresent antagonist who loomed large over the main character and his situation. In the second, he was pretty much just a cameo. In the third, he takes the reins as the film's main character, exposing what it's like to be a drug lord and what it takes to hold on to that position for so long. In this film, age has caught up with Milo and he is now an old man. People try to take advantage of him. Often, they get away with it. With all that is going on with him during this film, things like a precarious drug deal, debt collection, and on top of that, his daughter's birthday, it's hard to stay afloat of all these fucking situations. Refn shows that excellent. A lot is going on for him in just one night, which puts his sobriety, which he's trying to keep at, to test. Zlato Burek is amazing as Milo, and he betrays his inner panic perfectly. He hides it so well until it builds in these quiet moments he has alone. That's some of my favorite stuff in the trilogy. That said, the last 15 minutes of this movie left a very bad taste in my mouth. I know it's intentional, but I can't help but recoil from that gruesome conclusion. I know, I'm being a bit of a sourpuss about it. I hate to break it to you, I am not a gorehound. I get the intended effect is to make me feel disgusted at the lengths Milo is willing to go to maintain his status. At the same time, I can also have that intended effect lesser my opinion on the movie. Pusher 3 remains as good as the other entries, maybe even better at some times. However, that doesn't make it any easier to watch, man.
Oh shit. Here we go again.
This is probably my favorite Pusher movie. Pusher 2, a subtitled With Blood on My Hands. While the first film has a slick run-and-gun style cinematography, and the third explores the depths that these people are willing to go to, Pusher 2 captures something entirely different outside of panic. The style is very similar visually, but the tension is not as high. This allows for Refn to explore the life of a criminal who just got out of prison, and as soon as he leaves, he keeps fucking up everything. Actually, everyone around him keeps fucking up too. It happens so much that it kind of becomes comical. Odd as it sounds, Pusher 2 pulls that off. It shows the grime of crime life, but also that these criminals can be really fucking stupid sometimes. Especially the main character, Tony, who bumbles around, acts like a selfish idiot, and is probably the most likable person in the cast? Likeable is generous, okay? But in the context of this series, he is the most amiable. He has an interesting development in his character, and his relationship with his parents, and just parenthood as a concept. His realization about the environment his child is growing up in is interesting, and Mads Mikkelsen captures that shift magnificently. All these Pusher films do a fantastic job of letting their lead actors drag you into their chaotic and unpredictable lives, but Mads just takes the cake as the best of the three protagonists. I like the shenanigans put on display here. While Pusher 2 is far less hectic than the other films in the trilogy, it is by far the most human. The performances are great, the story is great, and Tony feels more fleshed out than most of Refn's characters. I love it. That is why it is my third favorite Nick Refn movie. It takes you into the depths of their incompetence and the flawed sense of morality these criminals carry. Even better than the other two.
Det är andra ting i den här filmen.
Yep.
Refn is a person who I would never strike as a mature filmmaker. His films are quite hyperbolic and hyper-violent. They often emphasize the aesthetics of criminal life. His early Danish films do this through chaotic, gritty storylines that humanize the criminal day-to-day transactions by proving how hectic they can get, utilizing a documentary approach to filmmaking that catches all the frenetic emotions that happen. However, with Bleeder, he takes that same low-tech film style away from the desperate moments of street life, capturing the lives of two men, Lenny, the film nerd, who is literally me, as he tries to kindle a romance, and Leo, an expecting father who's struggling with his incoming induction to fatherhood. While it may not be the most thorough examination of these ideas, what Refn gives here is surprisingly thoughtful. Both of these guys are afraid to face the challenges that life imposes on them. They can't face reality. Simple enough. Lenny shies away from his future, and Leo is stuck in his. Both leads to a spectacular job here. Kim Bodnia captures Leo's restless anxiety, and Mads does an amazing job at capturing Lenny's timid nature. Even through the shitty German dub I had to watch, I can tell how expressive these characters are. The filmmaking is on par with the Pusher trilogy. It goes for the run-and-gun feel those films have, but with some flourishes here and there that make it interesting. I like how the camera work becomes enveloped by the books and the movies that Lenny and his date Leah are so infatuated with. It's a really nice touch and adds to their storyline, as rushed as their storyline is. The only thing I don't really gel with on the filmmaking side is the red fade-outs. They're used excessively and for the most part feel out of place in the film, except for the last one. It's not for everyone, but you could say the same thing about most Nicholas Winding Refn films. Bleeder gets exceptionally dark, and not in the gory, hyper-violent way his films usually do. More so with its real-life depictions. I can see some of the complaints about how it's not super realistic or portrays things in an insensitive way, but for me, it tries to get into the headspace of someone who is insensitive, and someone who could commit such a horrific act. Its attempt is very interesting, to say the least. Does it make it rewatchable? Oh god, no. It's a flawed slice-of-life film that captures some flawed characters, which makes Bleeder one of Refn's most mature films to date, even if it does include some casual racism. It takes place in Denmark. What do you expect? This is probably Nicholas Winding Refn's most well-known film, and for good reason. Drive is the epitome of what Refn has been trying to do with the American half of his career. It's cool, drenched with neon lights, and has this bare script that allows for every bit of style to come through. However clear the inspirations may be, which are honestly crystal clear, this film manages to hold its own against those influences. It's just as slick. The soundtrack is awesome, of course, done by everyone's favorite member of the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Captain Beefheart's magic band, Cliff Martinez. The droning ambience is used to perfection every time. The songs featured on the soundtrack are iconic as well, fitting into that 80s revival perfectly. They're catchy, modern synth-pop tunes. My favorite is the song used in the opening, Kavinsky's Nightcall, which sets the stage for the rest of the film. You can certainly feel the 80s cool in this movie. It aims at that iconography, and with its cool main character and excellent supporting cast, it achieves it. Ryan Gosling is amazing. His performance is very nonchalant and intentionally muted. However, underneath that calm demeanor lies an internal fury when provoked. He plays driver. He drives. As the driver, he encounters newfound love, and that newfound love's estranged husband. The husband wraps him up in some murky situations, and things get out of hand fast. The performances in Drive are done in a way that complement the vibe that the film is going for. The The same could be said about how the film looks, especially those moody nighttime driving sequences. From how it sounds with things like the soundtrack and its deliberate placement of music pieces to the aforementioned stone-faced acting. However, unlike the films that follow Drive, the mood and the feeling are universal and easily understood. You can feel that adrenaline rush in those driving sequences day or night. You get the warmth from the driver's relationship with his neighbor. These things are laid out in a way that embraces the viewer in that cool demeanor. It evokes that 80s nostalgia, violence, and all those excesses to a T. No wonder this dawned a whole decade of media going after the 80s, and not only that, Gosling's excellent performance as the driver created a whole wave of people claiming that they are literally him. Well, I hate to break it to you folks. I'm literally him. He's literally me! All you guys are Lars, sitting there with your real girl. This is why Drive is, without a shadow of a doubt, my favorite film by Nicholas Winding Refn. It achieves his vision for action movies, adding a good mix of violence, romance, and perfectly placed moods that make his films so special, including both his American and Danish films. What do you guys think? Which character is literally you? Are you one of those guys who just bought a scorpion jacket as soon as this movie came out and became non-verbal? Leave your answers in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one.
There's something inside you. It's hard to explain.